What's up, everybody? Welcome back. If you haven't already checked out the previous video, that was the overview of the Scrub Python complex. I would highly recommend that before this next series of videos, where I'm going to be doing a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the different localities. As many of you might expect, I'm going to start off on the Barnecks, my personal favorite Scrub Pythons. Barnecks themselves are going to take a few different videos. So for this first video here, I'm going to be going through some of my reduced pattern Barnecks. A look that probably is not everybody's first thing that they think of when they think of a Barneck Scrub Python, but one that really holds a soft spot in my heart and I think are greatly underrated. So I'm gonna go show you guys a handful of these animals over here. So yeah, show you guys a few of these snakes and we'll get right to it. All right, so first and foremost, I'm gonna show a pretty young baby. This is one of the 2024 offspring. And this one was from a pretty reduced pattern pairing. The female had some very minimal banding and the male had none at all. Kind of a, no melanin really. Some pattern. We'll actually see him later on in this video. But as you can see on this baby, really behind the neck bars and one or two dots, following it, there is really almost no melanin to be seen, or I guess black pigmentation. Obviously there's melanin, but no black pigmentation to the rest of the body. Whatever they look like when they hatch, that's really the most reduced pattern that they're going to be. They will develop some melanin over time, especially as that base color lightens up. But if this is a look that anyone is after, a baby like this is a great place to start because you already can see some pattern coming in, but the pattern is lighter in color, where that pattern is not going to develop into dark adult coloration, where you will see some contrast there, but it'll be kind of like a tan on a lighter tan, more or less. So yeah, these are the babies. It's always cool to watch them grow and change. But as you guys know from the last video, these Barnecks start out kind of a brick red coloration when they're born. And over the first year to 2 years of their life, they make that transition to their final adult coloration. So this is another baby. This one is from a different clutch from the last one I just showed you guys. And like that one, really very little pattern to be seen as far as dark pattern goes. There are some bands on the back and pattern throughout, but it is pretty light and reduced. And considering the parents on this one as well, I expect that to stay very light. One thing that I really like about this snake and its siblings is that they have very light head pattern. Oftentimes baby Barnecks will have fairly contrasted heads, and their pattern on their heads is a bit darker than the rest of their body. But the bars and kind of those highlighter spots behind the eye are much lighter than, relatively speaking, than some other babies I've produced. So, who knows how that's going to develop over time, but definitely something I notice about this clutch that is different from some others, and could be something to do with, the reduced pattern look going forward, where those lighter headed individuals are ones that end up being lighter patterned as they grow. All right, so for anybody who watched the 2024 offspring review video, you've seen this snake before, but if we're on the topic of reduced pattern Barnecks, I'd be remiss to not show this snake again. So this is the one that was born with almost like a light purple coloration, very atypical for a baby Barneck. And it has developed very interestingly, where that tail still kind of has a little bit of that silvery look to it. As it is shed, it has definitely developed some more black pigmentation along the dorsal, but on the sides and by the ventral, it's still very light. So this is, a snake that is a holdback of mine for the reduced pattern line that I'm very, very eager to watch grow up. And I don't know, whenever I hatch out a snake that I can confidently say looks like nothing else I've seen before, very inclined to keep it. And this guy was most certainly fitting all of that criteria. All right, so this here is one of my yearling holdback Barnecks, and one that is going to be part of the reduced pattern project, but one that I wasn't particularly expecting out of the clutch that it came from. So for any of you who watched my first video, my Pomona preview, I talked a little bit about my Melanistic line of Barneck Scrub Pythons. And this guy is from that line, believe it or not. His mom is almost solid black, and then his dad is a very reduced pattern, kind of like grayish tan Barneck. So for this guy to come out essentially gold was definitely not something that I expected. None of his siblings have any sort of appearance like this. And that's kind of one of the best things about breeding Barneck Scrub Pythons, is you can really put two animals together with a goal in mind and still produce offspring that look nothing like either parent. And this is a look that I highly covet. The gold base color with the reduced pattern. Obviously, back to the tail, he darkens up significantly, very much akin to the mom, but up higher in the body, very light color. And then obviously there is pattern on the dorsal, but it is lighter in coloration. And that's kind of what I'm going for with some of these more reduced pattern Barnecks. So and this guy for me is a bit of a lesson of patience being a virtue with raising baby scrub pythons. Because when the clutch first hatched out, this one did not seem to be a standout individual to me. And one that I'd actually considering parting ways with at one point in time, but waiting a little while longer to see how it developed was definitely worth it, considering that this is what was waiting for me on the other side. So glad I was patient on this snake, and one that I know will be part of the collection for the long haul. All right, so this snake right here is probably the most unique snake I've ever hatched out of any kind. And this is actually a sibling to the last one I just showed from the Melanistic line. As you guys can tell, she was born with a bit of a kink later on in her tail, but nothing that has affected her in really any way at all. When this snake hatched out, it was pretty much like a silvery purple in appearance. The closest thing I can really compare it to is like a hypoazanthic ball python, where they really have that just kind of glow to them. I was immediately just completely thrilled when I saw it, and really nothing like I'd ever seen before. And she has continued to develop in a way that kind of keeps that ghostly appearance about her, even down in her tail, especially when she has any bit of that iridescent sheen coming out. It's definitely like a purplish appearance back there, kind of much more of like a silverish, axanthic looking coloration up higher on in the body. I'm not calling this snake an axanthic or anything, but kind of another example of how this Melanistic line seems to have something going on that could potentially be genetic, where just there are animals popping up that look like nothing I've really ever seen before in person or in pictures. And this snake definitely meets all that criteria for something that I've never seen before. So really just, I mean, of all the snakes I'm going to show you guys in this video, probably my favorite one, and for very good reason. She is just absolutely outstanding. All right. So this here is a male that was actually from my first ever clutch of Barneck Scrub Pythons back in 2020. And he is very strange in the absolute best way possible. Back kind of in the old days of scrub pythons, a snake that has this phenotype, if it was an import, would have been labeled a Kofiau type. Kofiau is an island off of the western side of the Bird's Head Peninsula, Papua New Guinea. And those animals are known for having kind of erratic, irregular pattern and kind of thinner neck bars, kind of like what this guy has a little bit. But obviously I hatched out this snake, so obviously is not from Kofiau, and really looks nothing like either of the parents, nothing like any of the siblings. And this was really the first animal that made me question what we know about Barneck Scrub Python locality type. Typically these reduced pattern animals have been referred to by the Manakwari label, which is not entirely inaccurate, but to the best of what I can put together so far, throughout the range of Barnecks, really you can find all different phenotypes in basically every location that they come from. And this animal is a great example of how a baby can pop out of a clutch looking nothing like anything else having to do with the breeding. With that said though, he is definitely one that I consider reduced pattern, even though he does have some more dark markings throughout his body, but considering that irregularity and really his overall lightness, definitely one that I will be using, and actually I'm currently using in more reduced pattern pairings. Definitely a puppy dog as well, as all of his siblings are from that clutch, and a snake that has been a real pleasure to raise, and has made me question a lot of things and kind of helped me learn a lot more about these snakes. All right, this is one of my adult breeder males, and he's a wild caught, long-term captive, and really a very cool example of a reduced pattern Barneck. For the most part, it seems like a lot of the reduced pattern Barnecks are a bit more on like the tan olive green side of the spectrum, where he's a little bit more on the gold side, which I really like. And just, you know, really a beautiful snake, great demeanor, as you can see. I don't know, to me there's nothing better than a chill adult scrub python. This guy's probably between 9 and 10 feet long, and just a phenomenal disposition, along with being an absolutely beautiful snake. I really love, he has bars, as you can see. What's cool about this guy's bars is that they are present, but if you take a bit of a closer look, the scales themselves actually are the same color between the bars and then the base pattern, but the scales on the bars just have outlines of black, and the middle is the same color, which is a really cool aspect of these reduced pattern Barnecks, especially ones that do have a more regular pattern like this one, except it's just much more reduced. So love this snake. I really love this appearance within the Barnecks, and hopefully this guy will go on to produce some little minions in the future. So this is another one of my Melanistic line animals. This one was born in 2019, and it was almost at adult size, not quite yet, but I don't know, the only way I can really describe this snake is almost like a hypo. She just has a very strange, in the best way possible, strange coloration. I really haven't seen this on another Barneck, with some pretty significant pattern, but the pattern is all very light. To me, this is almost like a dark patterned Barneck that like somebody just kind of turned the highlights up on, significantly, to the point of totally washing out the snake. It really has always had a strange appearance, even back when it was younger, and really retained that kind of hypo-ish look into adulthood. So another animal that makes me question if there is some sort of genetic link within that Melanistic line, just considering I've never seen another snake looks anything like this. If anything, the closest thing to it is her half sibling that I showed earlier in the video that's a year old. There's some significant differences between the two of them, but really, I guess that's as close as a comparison as I can draw. Really just a snake that continuously blows my mind as to what the hell is even going on with, but I'll take it, and she's one that I'm just absolutely thrilled to have. This snake right here is one of my absolute favorite reduced pattern ones that I have. I mean, I can make a case for it being my favorite, and probably as close as I can say I've gotten to my ultimate goal with this project. That being a snake really of this exact coloration, kind of that light olive green tan color with almost no pattern at all past the neck bars. That's really my goal, is neck bars and then no pattern at all whatsoever afterward. She has some pattern, but it really all kind of falls in a very narrow color spectrum, and just super bright. I mean, I love the contrast on those bars. She is a 2-year-old, a little over 2.5 years old now, produced in 2022, and is right about that size and age where you see their kind of adult coloration more or less. She'll probably continue to get a little bit lighter with age, but probably not much more than this. She was nice enough to just shed for us before the video, so we get to see her in her truest, best looking form, and I don't know. I'm absolutely blown away by this snake. She is just at a complete new level. So for me, no better snake to close this video out on than one of my first scrub pythons I ever got. Got this guy all the way back in 2017 as a little red neonate, and then I've raised him all the way up to an adult, and now I have babies from him in the collection too. So I don't know, very gratifying process to have a snake that you raise up from a little baby and then eventually breed one day. But as you can see, very much a reduced pattern snake, kind of like a darker olive green tan coloration to him. And like that last one, same kind of deal where it has the bars, but really the barring more just comes from outlines of scales as opposed to actual scale coloration. And as you saw from earlier in the video as well, his babies have come out very reduced pattern. When I was first getting into scrub pythons, honestly, these reduced pattern Barnecks, they were the first ones to really grab my attention, even before some of the more heavily patterned ones. That was back when they were all called the Maniquari Locality type, and has just always been something that I've highly coveted. Has had quite a soft spot for me, but especially when you have a snake like this that is just so incredible in every way possible, it's hard not to absolutely love this this phenotype. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to keep this video rolling on so I have an excuse to keep hanging out with this guy. He is just so incredible. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning into the video. If you weren't already convinced on reduced pattern Barneck Scrub Pythons, hopefully you are after seeing all of these animals. And with all of this said, this is really only one generation into line breeding the snakes. So, I mean, who knows what these animals will look like third, fourth, fifth generation. Definitely something that is in my my long-term plans to see through, and I'm loving every step of the process. If you enjoyed that video, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed here on YouTube, like, comment, share, do all of that good stuff. I'm on Instagram at Scrub Shepherd, Facebook at Stephen Cush, and I have a podcast every Wednesday on the Trap Talk Reptile Network called Cush's Corner. If you could go check that out as well, I would greatly appreciate it. Again, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you back here for a new video next week.